couple of you guys asked me, what are my thoughts on CM Punk, quote unquote, coming out and telling everything on that podcast he had on Colt Cabana's website. It was an interesting podcast, and what I want to do here is I have a summary of that podcast brought up on my phone. It's in some bullet points, and I'm going to... Sorry, I thought I was about to sneeze there. Okay. I need to sneeze. Professionalism. It's not polite to sneeze in front of a camera like that. But anyway, I'm going to go over the bullet points here and give you my thoughts and interpretation of this. And before I go into it, yes, I know this is just one side of the story. Yes, I know the WWE side, which they never exaggerate anything on their side, would be probably completely different from this. And yes, I know that this guy is from a disgruntled worker's standpoint. So you wouldn't really expect him to say much of anything good, though he surprisingly does say a few good things here, but we'll get to all that in a second. Anyway, my senseless, unimportant thoughts on the CM Punk interview on the Colt Cabana show. Anyway, first bullet point. CM Punk left after the Royal Rumble mainly because of his health. He talked about working with broken ribs, a concussion, and bad knees during his last months with the company. Punk was so sick during last November's European tour that he was throwing up and dry heaving every night after his matches. He had a fever for months and no appetite. WWE doctors gave him so many antibiotics that he had an accident in the ring on SmackDown, all while watching his paycheck shrink. He said it was the worst he's ever felt in his life. Now, the quote-unquote accident that they're mentioning here was that he literally shit himself during a match. Like, that's how bad his condition was. And he is someone who is straight edge. So when he gets sick or he's dealing with pain, he is not someone who's going to take what you or I may take to dull the pain, any sort of prescribed painkiller or anything like that. I mean, they're lucky enough he's taking some sort of antibiotics, having problems with his knees, broken ribs, concussion, and the fact that he's toughing that out all while remaining straight edge, either that or he's lying about being straight edge. Regardless of the fact is, there's a number of mounted injuries that he was documented to have, assessed, and, you know, did his daily grind in the wrestling industry there. So he felt disgruntled from that end of things. Anyway, on to the next bullet point. He suffered a concussion early during the Royal Rumble match, but still worked. He passed the concussion test the next day and called the testing, quote, bullshit. WWE informed he had passed, but wanted him to run the ropes and evaluate him. Punk then demanded that they just decide he has a concussion and admitted that he had been trying to deny, admitted that he had been trying to deny he was hurt and just tough it out. So, there we have someone, from his perspective, felt he was genuinely hurt beyond the point that he should be competing, and that the quote-unquote testing that is being given for this, he's basically attacking the wellness policy here, that the testing for it is, as he said on Colt Cabana's podcast, bullshit. Anyway, let's move on. It gets a little bit more interesting from here on out. Punk says that the same day he was being pressured about taking a drug test and signing visas for future tours, instead of listening to the requests for help, because something was obviously wrong. Punk then told Vince McMahon and Triple H that he was going home. Punk says he told off Triple H about cutting off his momentum in 2011 and complained to Vince for stifling Punk's creativity. He says he told them both it was garbage how Daniel Bryan wasn't getting considered for the WrestleMania 30 main event. Punk says he told them that he didn't want to do this anymore and he was done. Vince was in tears when he hugged Punk goodbye and told him that he was family. Okay, now a couple things. That whole thing of cutting off his momentum in 2011, that's a whole separate issue. Triple H is notorious for stealing the spotlight or cutting momentum short on people. But anyways, that's a whole different thing. the whole thing of him being upset, and this is something that was rumored to have been something that agitated Punk, because Punk leaves after the Royal Rumble last year. The one significant thing that happened in the Royal Rumble, as I said in my previous CM Punk video, was that he was upset that one of Triple H's boys was returning, Dave Batista. Sure enough, Dave Batista returns, wins the Royal Rumble, and all of a sudden gets the main event spot at WrestleMania 30. It was basically nixing Daniel Bryan out of the main event. Now you might be saying, well, hey, Daniel Bryan ended up main eventing. Yeah, because audiences around the country fucking took over every Raw until they opened their eyes and finally changed their mind. Now you can believe whatever. I'm sure WWE's story is that, oh, we had that planned all along. Bull fucking shit. You had a face Batista go over on that Royal Rumble in Pittsburgh getting booed off his ass. Booed so bad you had to cue up his music immediately when the match ended. It was a disgrace that Rey Mysterio was getting booed for being entrant number 30 because the audience was expecting Daniel Bryan. WWE did not plan that fucking shit to have a main event come down to where your winner, a face who has been portrayed as a face, who was later then turned heel because of the heat he was getting, because the audience saw through it. The audience saw Triple H hooking up one of his boys, and that's what was happening. CM Punk never came back after that Royal Rumble, and it turns out from this Colt Cabana interview that was one of the major reasons why he was irritated. So, that confirms that. Another thing here is, even though he's a disgruntled worker here, Punk still found a way to shed some niceness, if that's a word, on the situation, in saying how Vince McMahon hugged him, said he's family, he was teary-eyed. Like, if he wanted to go out on a vengeful note, he could have said Vince McMahon told him to fuck off and booted him out the back door. Like, he didn't have to say anything sort of nice like this, like humanizing Vince, making him sound like Vince was genuinely sorry and had heartfelt sorrow for him. Like, he doesn't have to say anything fucking nice about Vince, but he took the time to say it. Even though he's a disgruntled worker, he took the time to say something nice, which to me adds some validity to his story. It adds more validity to his story. Anyway, continuing off on that, onto the next point after the Royal Rumble instances. It turns out Punk was actually fired from WWE. After he left in January, right after the Royal Rumble, he was told a few weeks later by Vince McMahon through a text message that he was being suspended for 2 months. This was the day before Vince told WWE shareholders that Punk had taken a sabbatical. Punk heard from no one in WWE once the suspension was over and received termination papers for breach of contract on his wedding day in June. If that is fucking true and WWE knew about that, they are some evil, maniacal motherfuckers that you're going to fuck with a guy on his wedding day. Now, can't take any of that with absolute certainty that they absolutely knew about that. But boy, if Triple H and everyone else, all the chief muckety-mucks said, you know, fuck this guy. He stabbed us in the back by walking out. We're gonna fucking taint one of his quote-unquote best days ever by serving him termination papers on the day he gets married. And you know what? I don't throw it past Triple H, because he is one of the most bitter fuckety fucks in the business. I used to have nothing but respect for that guy, but it's just so crystal clear what his modus operandi is in that company. Anyway, let me just finish off in the last 2 bullet points here. Punk says he hired a very vicious lawyer to go after WWE and fight their claim of breach of contract. In the end, Punk got a settlement that gave him everything he asked for and more. Punk's not allowed to talk about the settlement. He said they were done and he will never be in a working relationship with them again. Punk says WWE wanted to issue a joint statement with him, but he told them to, quote, fuck off. WWE was worried that he would go to TNA, but Punk's lawyer told WWE that he despises wrestling now and will never wrestle again. And the last bullet point was that he said that Ryback took 20 years off his life and described Ryback as the, quote, steroid guy, No surprise there. Those big beefy motherfuckers that are roided up like Ryback have always been known to get complaints in the business for working too stiff. Backing up to that previous point, the fact of him saying that he hired a lawyer to have to go after the whole breach of contract thing. When WWE fires you, they basically cancel their contract, don't have to pay you anymore, but they're fearful that if you do that, that terminates your contract, you're free to go wherever you want. I don't even know why WWE would necessarily even fear if he went to TNA. Kurt Angle, I do believe from my professional wrestling opinion, Kurt Angle was way more of a superstar, way more of a known name, being that he was a known name outside of the wrestling world. When he up and left from WWE, went to TNA, it was, a significant amount of noise at first, but then ended up being just a little blip on the radar. I mean, why would WWE really fear Punk going to TNA? Like, would that be... It'd be one thing if he was holding the belt when he left, but still. Anyway, one last thing I want to say about this is why this adds so much validity, the whole thing of him hiring a lawyer, making a lawsuit against WWE, is this would explain Punk's silence over the past few months. When you're in a court case like that, it's not wise to speak out about those you are suing in any way, shape, or form. Just, you give the no comment. I can't speak about that. I can't give details. So there's good reason. And all the people that were yelling, for Punk, come clean, tell us why you left, you owe it to your fans, this and that and that and this. If he was legitimately in a lawsuit against WWE, which he's claiming he is, that makes perfect sense why he hasn't come out, why he hasn't spoke up. Because I was getting kind of irritated like that too. I was like, why the fuck can't he give his fans anything? Why can't he just say, maybe I'll come back, maybe I won't, or just fuck WWE, I'm never going back there. Like, he didn't give us anything as fans. And this is just one of the many instances why I cannot stand the wrestling product today. Why I can't. Just the bureaucratic bullshit of guys like Triple H bringing their boys in whenever they want. Like someone like Batista winning the Royal Rumble. That was about the last straw that I could just stand of watching. I ended up watching WrestleMania just to see if they would magically somehow give Daniel Bryan the belt, and sure enough, they ended up doing that. Short-lived title run because he ends up getting injured and he'll probably never get a belt again. That was basically Triple H paying fan service at this point. And also a way I honestly feel if CM Punk never left the company, I personally, myself, feel that Triple H never would have let Daniel Bryan win the belt. Never at WrestleMania. No fucking way. Because that was kind of a way of saying like, see CM Punk, that could have been you. That could have been you. The little independent guy that worked his way up through the indie leagues, the underdog, and he got his moment in the spotlight, and it wasn't you. And he beat me earlier in the night, Triple H would say. Not to take anything away from Daniel Bryan, he's a tremendous athlete and all that, in the ring and all that, but it makes you wonder if he would have even got that shot if CM Punk never left the company, because I really think that was one of Triple H's final ways of thumbing his big, ridiculous nose at CM Punk. Anyway, I've had next to no interest other than Botchamania episodes of watching wrestling. I tried watching wrestling on Monday night. I flipped over from football and I saw Larry the Cable Guy and a guy in a bunny suit. I've never changed a channel so fucking fast in my life. I turned on, I'm like, this is what they're doing, click. It was like putting the remote in a bear trap. My hand just went, it just tried to turn the channel so fucking fast. Anyway, I mean, I know you never say never in wrestling, and, it's like, oh, this could all just be an elaborate storyline, maybe it's just one big storyline, he's going to come in and, fuck up someone's, title reign at WrestleMania or something. I don't put anything past anything as far as the wrestling world goes, but in this specific instance, when he walked out, how he walked out, how this propelled the crowds to sabotage Raw and take over. I don't think WWE would have done all of this for the sake of a long, drawn-out storyline to eventually bring CM Punk and be like, aha, we pulled the wool over your eyes. This was all a ruse. Now, I think this is the real deal, and honestly, I don't think we'll ever see CM Punk ever, ever, ever again in WWE. And that might be because they're out of fucking business in a year or two. But that's the WWE network's doing and how abysmal that's flopping. Anyways, I don't wish the company to go out of business because, there's guys earning honest paychecks, earning a living, trying to feed their families and put roofs over their heads and all that. But I can't say it would make me too upset to see the company in the state it's in now sink. But it's doing that on its own. It's sinking more and more. That network fucking blows. It's getting nowhere near the amount of people, and kind of banked on it. They kind of banked on it. It's got to succeed or else that company's going to be up shit's fucking creek. Anyways, have a good day and enjoy this non-football video on a lovely Saturday. Though it's 20 degrees outside. Have a good day, guys.